You're listening to Dark Hearts and True Crimes, where we uncover the hidden darkness behind stories that feel too close, too real, and too human to ignore. Some stories feel heavier than others, not because of how gruesome they are, but because of who they involve. Tonight's story is one of them. This is a case that cuts deeper because the people at the center of it were just kids. Teenagers, girls with bright futures, inside jokes, and high school crushes. The kind of story you'd expect to end in college applications, not courtrooms. But instead, one ended up buried in the woods, and the other two, behind bars. This is a heartbreaking story of Skylar Neese, a 16-year-old girl murdered not by a stranger, but by her two closest friends. Girls who laughed with her, tweeted her inside jokes, and hugged her mother while knowing exactly what they had done. On a warm July night in 2012, in the quiet town of Star City, West Virginia, Skylar did something many teens have done. She climbed out of a bedroom window. Maybe she didn't want to wake her parents. Maybe it was all part of the plan. Surveillance footage would later show her stepping into the backseat of a car at 12:30 a.m. It would be the last time anyone saw her alive. When Skylar didn't come home the next day, her parents panicked. She was responsible, smart, a straight-A student with dreams of becoming a lawyer. Running away didn't make sense. But without any immediate signs of foul play, police didn't treat it as an abduction. Instead, they waited. And while they waited, the girls who knew exactly what had happened to Skylar pretended they were just as confused and heartbroken as everyone else. Shelia Eddy and Rachel Shoaf were Skylar's best friends. They were the kind of trio you'd see on Instagram with matching filters, scribbling notes to each other in class. They laughed together, hung out after school, and sometimes, like that night, snuck out late to drive around and smoke. So when the girls told police they had picked Skylar up and dropped her back off near her house that night, no one questioned it first. Why would they? But what they didn't know, what no one could even begin to imagine, was that Rachel and Shelia weren't telling the truth. Their smiles were fake. Their grief was rehearsed. They were lying, because that night, they hadn't dropped Skylar off at home. They had taken her deep into the woods, just over the Pennsylvania border. A place they had planned, a place they had chosen. Skylar had no idea what was coming. As the three girls walked along a dirt trail, laughing like everything was normal, Shelia and Rachel looked at each other and counted softly. 1, 2, 3. That was their signal. And then, together, they turned on her. Skylar was stabbed over 50 times, left bleeding, terrified, and alone. They covered her body with branches and leaves, like it would erase what they'd done. And then they drove home. For months, no one knew the truth. Rachel and Shelia comforted Skylar's parents. They tweeted things like "Skylar come home" and posted throwback pictures like they were mourning. But behind the scenes, the weight of their secret started to crack them open. Rachel was the first to break. In January 2013, 6 months after Skylar disappeared, she confessed everything. And her reason? Her chilling words. We just didn't like her anymore. She led police to the body. What was left of Skylar lay in a shallow, makeshift grave, her life reduced to branches and silence. Shelia was arrested soon after. Her car still had traces of Skylar's blood in the trunk. The evidence was overwhelming. But even then, Shelia smiled in court like it was a game. Rachel Shoaf pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison, with a possibility of parole after 10. Shelia Eddy pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life, with a possibility of parole after 15 years. As of now, they are both still behind bars, but their eligibility for release is approaching, and is a thought that still haunts many. Skylar's death didn't just leave her parents shattered, it changed West Virginia law. Skylar's law was passed to ensure that when a child goes missing, even if they don't fit the standard Amber Alert criteria, their case is still treated with urgency. Because Skylar deserved that. Every child does. Her story is a devastating reminder of how cruel friendship can turn, and how sometimes evil hides behind the people we trust the most. She was only 16. She had a future, a voice, dreams that stretched further than that dark night in the woods. And even though her life was cut short, her story still echoes. In every tweet, every headline, every mother who hugs her daughter a little tighter. We tell these stories not just to remember the victims, but to remind ourselves, evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes, it looks like your best friend. Thank you for listening to Doc Hots and True Crimes. If this story moved you, subscribe, share, and help us keep these voices alive.